Well, let's keep the optimism here going. We're moving toward very positive stuff here, and let's go to fairy tales for a second here. You don't shy away from talking about the fact that, of course, today there is pushback against fairy tales in the sense that we think of them as projecting unrealistic roles and unrealistic ways of viewing each other. And your take on it is, yeah, but that's not what we're supposed to be taking from it anyway. There's a reason why fairy tales have been around for as long as they have been, and why we, even if we don't want them, we keep writing them. Can you talk a little bit about why the fairy tale is so important for optimism?
Yeah, and I'll admit this again. I mean, this was a conversion moment for me. In the same way that I was skeptical about literature as therapy, I was skeptical about optimism. I was raised in a kind of culture that was like, you got to be careful. You got to be circumspect. You got to be skeptical. You got to question. And of course, if you do any kind of training in literature nowadays, the number one thing you learn is critique. We're literary critics. You're trained that you should always be skeptical. You should have a hermeneutic of suspicion or what have you, and always be pulling everything apart. And so that was kind of how I was raised and kind of how I was trained. And I just thought that was the right way to go about things. Even though there's value in skepticism and there's certainly value in realism, there's enormous value in optimism, huge value in optimism. And optimism is different from magical thinking. Optimism is saying this could happen or this could work. Magical thinking is saying this will happen or this will work. And it's important to understand that fairy tales are about optimism, not about magical thinking, or at least classic fairy tales are. And they're about opening our mind to a sense of possibility. And that sense of possibility is enormously important for our brain because it's the wellspring of creativity. It's also the wellspring of resilience. Without that optimism, we get ourselves very quickly caught into fatalism and what's known as catastrophizing. So catastrophizing is a very kind of logical thing that happens in our head all the time. And when something happens and it's bad, we say to ourselves, well, bad things must have happened for a reason. And that reason must be that the bad things, are stronger than the good things. So the bad things are going to keep happening. Or if I myself fail, then I say, well, there must be a reason that I failed. And that must be that I'm a failure. So I'm going to keep failing. And so there's this whole logic, which seems very reasonable, that bad things lead to bad things, lead to bad things, lead to bad things, lead to bad things. And to break that cycle and to be your fullest self and to empower the people around you, you have to say, no, actually, sometimes bad things can lead to good things. Sometimes a problem can be an opportunity. Sometimes a crisis can be a growth moment. Sometimes the exact opposite thing of what I wanted can be the thing that changes my life for the better. And what classic fairy tales do is they offer us those moments of catastrophe, and then they show us how unexpectedly remarkable, wonderful things can happen. And that's because fairy tales are really a kind of continuation of ancient comedy, where the same thing happens on the ancient comic stage, where there'll be, a kind of terrible, awful, impossible situation. And then in a kind of serendipitous deus ex machina move, everything will turn around and there will be a marriage and there'll be happiness. And it's just very important for our brain to have that sense that good things could happen as opposed to giving into fatalism.